Hello and welcome to this week's Wisdom Wednesday. I'm Dr. Susanna Alter.
And I'm Dr. Ben.
And here we are for our Wisdom Wednesday episode where we love to explore the topics of innate peace, innate well-being, and innate wisdom through the lens of mind, thought, and consciousness. And today, I chose the topic.
Welcome back, Dr. Susanna. You took a week off last week.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't here last week. Well, funny story. I can actually talk about that in this session. But before we, whenever we're about to hop on to a Wisdom Wednesday, we always look at each other and say, what are we going to talk about this week? What's on our heart? What's on our mind this week? And so really what's on my heart and mind this week is really, loving our full, messy selves.
Oh, I thought you said being.
Well, both.
Well,
they're both important.
I guess you gotta love yourself to be yourself. You gotta be yourself to love yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So what do you mean by your full messy self? What does that mean?
Well, maybe I should share a little bit about what happened last week.
About how messy you are?
Well, yes.
How you never do your dishes? Just kidding.
No. Although I do have a tendency to keep things laying around a little while. But yeah, no, really what I mean is really loving ourselves through, as we experience the full spectrum of emotions in this life. And it's so funny because I say it all the time in these Wisdom Wednesday calls and our Peace on Earth calls, like, yes, it's okay to just feel whatever you're feeling. It's okay to feel. And I had an experience last week where I was triggered and I wasn't able to keep my cool in front of others. And rather than forgiving myself, rather than letting it go, rather than just accepting that I'm human and there's times where, I let my emotions and thoughts get the best of me, I was really hard on myself. I wasn't allowing myself the grace and the love that I'm always talking about here. And yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Well, it leads me to really appreciate how easy it is to love myself when I feel good. It's like, oh yeah, self-love. I feel good. Everything's happy. I just got this. I just did this. That person just said this. And I got a lot of likes on my Instagram and la-di-da-di-da. Self-love. Yeah, I'm cool. Things are good. And it's so easy to love yourself when you're in a good state of mind. And maybe that does correspond with external things happening in your favor. But when the tides turn, how are you showing up? When the going gets tough, how is the tough getting going? Are you rising up and loving that shadow, loving that difficulty, appreciating it, embracing it? And I'll just share briefly because maybe not related to Dr. Susanna's last week. I don't think it's related. But on Monday, just a couple of days ago, when we were lifting weights, which I don't do every day, but lift weights regularly, I had some back tension, back spasm that incapacitated me, that I'm still feeling full on. And yesterday it was like, okay, I'm feeling my back. I'm feeling my back. It's tolerable. I can get around. And I was feeling so grateful for my body and my healing. And I was like, yeah, my back is healing. My back is doing great. I was in this kind of like gray area of shadow. It wasn't full on brightness, but it was like gray, and I was appreciating it. And I'm like, oh, this is good. I'm loving myself. And even when I don't feel good, feels good. And I was really appreciating my stuff. And then this morning I woke up and my back pain was much worse. And boy, I was really, it was hard. It was hard to get out of bed. It was hard to move in life. Not only like physically hard, but I was struggling. and I am struggling. And really where I'm at with it, where you've caught me in this moment is struggling and really, acknowledging and embracing myself in my struggle fully, full on. Yeah, I want it to go away. And actually, as I'm rambling right now, I don't feel anything, oddly enough. Yeah, I want it to go away, and I trust it will go away. But I want it to go away 2 days ago, not in 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months. I want it to go away yesterday at the latest, right? But yet, I'm still here with myself, not neglecting that part of myself that's angry and frustrated, but allowing it to be fully embraced.
Well, yeah, and I mean, honestly, like I am super inspired by your sharing of that right now, Dr. Ben, because it reminds me of a year ago when I had back pain that started up, and I remember even feeling self-conscious to share that with my clients, with those listeners out there, because and here you are sharing so easily, and I think that is so cool, but I had a hard time sharing that. And I had a hard time sharing any of my difficulties or struggles
I
because
know.
I know you do. I know you know, I know. I know you know. Because it was like I realized this little tiny voice that has been more apparent to me of this desire for me to appear perfect all the time in front of clients and people out there. Like, oh, like, well, Susanna can't have back pain, or Susanna can't ever get angry, or Susanna can't, whatever it is, fill in the blank, because we're sitting here in this, podcast host role, sharing our reflections and
That's your thought. I have little of that thinking whatsoever.
which I think is super cool.
I think to some, well, but let me explain. It's like to some degree, the sloppier, the messier, the better, because that's like so cool to just be in life and make a mess and share it, because we know we've all been there. We've all been, not everywhere, but a lot of places. We've all experienced all the emotions pretty much. So that's all good. But for, it's like that doesn't mean that feeling lousy, either physically or emotionally, is pleasant. We know how normal it is. We know that everyone gets a tummy ache and a headache, and everyone gets sad and depressed and anxious. We know that everyone has these feelings, but that doesn't mean that feeling those feelings is really any easier. But still, like that acknowledgement, that awareness, and that, like, facing that creates, at least in my experience, like a little bit of openness to just go into it, and or just not. I don't think I'm going into it. I think it's coming into me more fully. And in that, it's like gone. As the moment that we allow ourselves to like embrace the deepest, darkest thing, it's like kind of not really there. There's nothing to hold on to. We're already past it, beyond it, through it. So it's, I guess where I'm coming to in this moment is this this realization that, wow, maybe I can, in the most difficult times, because I wouldn't say that this time right now is the most difficult time I've ever had in my life. But the most difficult time I've ever had in my life is only the most difficult time I've ever had in my life. And I survived it. And I've survived the second most difficult time, and the third most difficult time, and the fourth most difficult time. And not only have I survived all of these difficult times that really weren't even that difficult, but I have thrived through it with growing and learning and evolving. So it's like coming to the point, And I'm just saying, like, not fully, but it's coming to the point where now, when there's the difficulty on the horizon in the moment, there's not a fear response. There's not a clinching. There's not a resisting immediately. Maybe there's like a hint of that, but it's met also with a lot more genuine openness. Like, I got this. Like, it's going to be okay. In other words, trust. In other words, surrender. In other words, presence, and being fully myself, which that is who I am. I am present, and I am able and willing to embrace it all. So that's where I feel myself kind of being called.
Nice.
And thank you for bringing this topic up of embrace. What are we calling it? Being your full messy self.
Loving our full messy self.
Because I don't know anyone who's perfectly put together, so to speak. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so funny that we watch the movies, we see the magazine covers and the, you know, celebrity, whatever, everyone looking all put together and perfect. And yet it's oftentimes like the more we try to hold it together, the more tension there is, right? The more tension there is, the more we try to hold it together. And then at some point things crack. And that's a beautiful thing because then we're actually starting to be able to acknowledge and feel and experience the truth of who we are, which is not that which we are trying to help be held together, but that which is in the middle and ever present. So that's where we're pointing towards, looking at, feeling, being. And again, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, while you were sharing, you know, I was thinking of how also you were just kind of going through, you know, that feeling experience. But what was coming to mind for me is that, you know, just because, I'll use you as the example because you just shared, it's like, just because you've got back pain and you're a doctor
in this moment.
Actually,
I don't in this moment.
Oh, you don't. Well,
I already shared at standstill.
Oh, anyway. Yes. Well, just because you had back pain this morning.
I will when I get off this chair, probably.
Like, that doesn't mean anything about you as a person. And I think for me, you know, I was wrapped up in so many stories about how, well, since I'm a naturopathic doctor and since, you know, I'm here teaching about health and nutrition and we're here talking about innate peace and innate well-being and whatever, you know, that means that I shouldn't have back pain, or that means that I should, you know, it's silly to say it out loud now.
Not to mention the zit on my lip. What kind of doctor gets zits on their lip? Jeez, I'm awful. But then again, our lab work. I'm just kidding.
No, that's perfect. No, but for real. And I mean, just to bring up, you know, why I wasn't here last week is because I was in the middle of being really upset with myself, and I just couldn't bring myself to come on camera. We had just had a group call where I lost my cool. Towards Ben, and I just felt so ashamed that I let that happen. And, you know, I also was judging myself that call really didn't go well. And we're here.
I thought it went beautifully, by the way.
Well, there you go. But, you know, my thought was like, we're here to serve. And we made that call more about us and our relationship dynamics. And, you know, there are just all these judgments. And I caught myself like, oh my gosh, Susanna, you talk all the time in these calls and sessions about just, you know, like letting ourselves off the hook. And
actually, I called you out, Susanna, and apparently you heard it, but you didn't hear my voice. You heard what my voice turned on inside of you.
There you go. But, you know, this whole experience has really made me realize it's kind of opened up a deeper level of sensitivity to the tension that is there in my body when I am so concerned about things go, how a call goes, or how I'm being perceived here on the other side of this camera. Which is so funny because as humans, we don't have any control over how other people perceive us ever. But I'm just realizing how that tension doesn't feel worth it. It's like, oh my gosh, like, it's not fun. It's not fun to feel that tension of insecurity of, oh, how is this call going? How is this episode going? Are people getting anything out of this? What do people think about
So
me?
let it go
Because I was
forever.
angry.
In this moment, at least.
Yeah. And of course, yes, I'm not going to put that expectation on myself because as humans, we are messy. We are messy and we get sucked into our thinking.
Yeah.
And that leads to emotions, of course. But I do think it's super cool. I think it's super cool how this experience, even though it was uncomfortable and messy, it did open up a new layer of my understanding and a new layer of sensitivity within myself of how that background chatter, how faint it might seem. And sometimes it's in our blind spot. We don't even notice it until we really notice it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like what happened last week really helped me notice it. And so I'm grateful, even though it was an uncomfortable situation for me to be in.
So it is. Yeah. And that is what life is for.
And I just want to say,
feeling grateful, learning, being blessed.
Yeah. And I just want to say also that, I was reminded too by a conversation with your mother, who I'm also so grateful for, of some of my favorite teachers
are messy.
The reason why I love them is because they are so real. They're so real.
Who doesn't love authenticity? Who is like, that person is way too authentic. I gotta go the other way. I can't deal with that level of authenticity. Like, come on.
So that was refreshing for me to remember. So really, I feel like from what happened last week, one of my big takeaways, I shared this with Ben, is that like, I want to embrace my full self and not be afraid to express that full self, and so that's where I'm at.
Me too.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. That's why you're here. And thank you for being here. Thanks for tuning in to another Wisdom Wednesday episode of the Alter Your Health podcast. If this stuff resonates, if you want to be more immersed, you can join us in Peace on Earth calls and see us in our full, true colors more often and converse with us and share your insights and be heard, be seen. Find out more at alter.health. And other than that, we've got another whole food plant-based challenge starting on Monday, changing topics because our health, our well-being is way beyond just our state of mind, but also way beyond just our state of physiology. It's both, right? So the next whole food plant-based challenge is going to be focused on the terrain. It's called the Terrain Revival. If you don't know what the heck we're talking about when we use the term terrain, then you might want to tune in and figure it out and learn a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you can, again, find out more at alter.health. Mm-hmm. So thanks for being here. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Peace and love.
Bye for now.